Morning, this is Brian. Today is a bright and beautiful Sunday, February 28th, 2021. I'm in the San Bernardino National Forest in the San Bernardino Mountains, just north of Redlands. I'm about 3,200 feet above sea level right now, and as you can see, I'm surrounded by a lot of nice looking pines. Well, that's the topic for today's Spotlight on Trees. Today's spotlight focuses on the Knobcone Pine, Pinus attenuata, A-T-T-E-N-U-A-T-A, attenuata. So, Pinus attenuata is generally a smaller, sometimes medium-sized tree. It is found basically from, I believe, Baja into parts of Oregon, I want to say. It's pretty commonly scattered up and down the, I want to say, the coast ranges. I know parts of Northern California and also here in Southern California, but here in Southern California it's very widely scattered. It's not nearly as widely ranged as it is in other parts of the state. Knobcone pine, to my knowledge, is only truly native in 2 spots, maybe 3. But the 2 spots I know for sure it's native to, this area here, along City Creek Road, California 330, that leads from the Redlands area to the Running Springs area at 6,000 feet. And this area, you'll start finding the knobcone pines a little bit above 2,000 feet to just over 5,000 feet along the 330. So we're lucky to have Highway 330 that goes through one of the very few stands of this tree native here to Southern California. Another spot is either only reachable by foot or by very good 4-wheel drive. It's along Main Divide Road in the north central Santa Ana Mountains, from just south of Pleasance, for about a mile south of Pleasance Peak up towards Hagador Peak, mostly at an elevation of about 3,500 feet, 3,600 feet above sea level. And that's in the Santa Ana Mountains, and that is along the Orange and Riverside County borders here in Southern California. Knobcone pine might have some native stands, maybe in parts of the San Gabriels. I am not 100% sure about that. I know there are vouchers for it in San Antonio Canyon, I believe. But, however, if you know what this tree is like, and you're watching this video, you're thinking, I see knobcone pines all over the place. What are you talking about, Brian? Well, here's the thing. Knobcone pines are very commonly planted by the Forest Service to help with reforestation. If you go up over by Chalao and Charlton Flats in the San Gabriel Mountains along Angeles Crest Highway, there were quite a few knobcone pines. I know some of that area burnt during the bobcat fire, but these trees regrow vigorously because their cones are adapted to mostly wait until fire before they open and release the seeds onto barren, ashen soil. Those minerals are good. The clearing brush is gone, so there's no competition, so the seeds germinate, and then they grow into trees. So here is a knobcone pine branch that fell off of this tree here. It looks like there's been a lot of wind over here. So we'll go look at some of the diagnostic features of the knobcone pine. So knobcone pines are characterized by, especially here in Southern California, quite shrubby, small tree status, kind of with a lot of times branching near the base or sometimes even slightly multi-trunked. They're also characterized by 3 needles, 3 dark green needles per bundle. As you can see here, this is a dead branch, or a dying branch, so I don't feel too bad about picking. I don't like to pick live tissue off trees. You can see here, 3 needles per fascicle, kind of a darkish green color. Very, very beautiful green. It's a very nice looking green. And then we got these cones that cluster in whorls around the branches. So, as you can see here, they cluster and they whirl around each side of the branch. The cones are characterized by having these warty knobs with these little sharp claws at the end of the cone scales, as you can see here. So if one of these hits you, you're going to bleed. They're not extraordinarily heavy, and they're not as sharp as coulter pine. Refer to my coulter pine video and you'll see the enormous cones that those trees have. But these will hurt if they fall on you. But unless a branch falls on you, you're not likely to have a super big concern, because these cones are very much stuck to the branches of the tree. And what that means is sometimes cones can stay stuck on a tree so long that the bark will start engulfing them on the branches, increasing in girth. This hasn't quite happened, but you could tell this is one of the thicker branches, and there's still a cone on it. These cones are very persistent. It takes a lot of hardcore pushing to get them off, probably by heavier animals, maybe occasionally knock them off. But so I was telling you, knobcone pines are mostly serotinous. They generally wait for the heat of fire to open. So when they wait for the heat of fire to open, the term for that is serotiny. And what they do is the fire melts the resin that keeps the cone scales glued together. Then the cones open, and after the fire goes through, the seeds are able to hit the ground relatively unscathed, and they're in the soil. There's no competing vegetation at that time. So especially if the winter rains come and give you enough moisture, and you can have these seedlings. So let's go ahead and walk around. Really love this little spot. I've passed this countless times driving up to the San Bernardino Mountains, but I've always failed to stop here and check out these beautiful knobcone pines in the area. So again, you can see these are pretty short statured trees, not very large. They're not usually very large trees. Again, here in Southern California, I rarely see them. In this area, I see them maybe up to 35, 40, maybe 45 feet on some larger individuals. And the ones around Main Divide in the Santa Ana Mountains between Orange and Riverside County are mostly even smaller. Some of them are like maybe 20 feet tall. But one thing I gotta say is I believe that these trees are quite underappreciated for their natural beauty. And you can see, going up this way, this is towards Harrison Mountain up here. You can see lots of knobcone pines growing up and down the slope. So they tend to be more adapted towards serpentine soils that are usually very toxic to other plants, shrubs and trees. So you probably won't be quite so likely to see a lot of other competing growth, except there are some trees and shrubs that are adapted to it. But here I don't see any serpentine rock. I would imagine there probably is in this area, but I have seen that along Main Divide where the knobcone pines grow in the Santa Ana range. You'll see some kind of coal-colored black, slightly shiny rocks sometimes in the soil along the side of Main Divide, and as your indication that you're looking at serpentinite. So we're talking about the growth of these pines in other spots. They have been known to get up to at least 80 feet tall in certain areas. Like I said, I have never seen them even close to that here in SoCal. But another note on these beautiful trees is, what are they related to here? Well, they're a pine, so they have some affinity with a lot of our other conifers like Jeffrey pine, ponderosa pine, and sugar pine, because they are pines. However, they're not closely related. They're in another group that is only represented by 3 species here in California. Knobcone pine, what we're talking about now, Then we got Monterey pine and bishop pine. They're all three closely related and could potentially hybridize, especially Monterey and knobcone pines. So, the thing I want to mention is that they're in a separate group, these three pines. They're in a group called, a subgroup called Australes. It's basically section Australes, which is basically means the southern pines. So they have some affinity with some of the pines in the southeastern US, like Pinus echinata, shortleaf pine, which I've seen in Arkansas once, and I believe the slash pine might be in Australes as well. And that's Pinus elliottii. I think that one is in that group. One thing I've noticed that certain areas, these trees, there have been some mortality. I'm believing there might be a bark beetle or something going on here. Do see a fair amount of dead specimens here. They plant them by Blue Jay Campground in the Santa Ana Mountains, off Ortega Highway, Long Canyon Road. Some of them are dying over there too. I don't see a lot of mortality here, just a few scattered trees like this one, but I've seen some around there in Blue Jay Campground as well. So I wonder if there's a type of bark beetle or something that harms these trees as well. So, like Monterey pine, its close relative, bark is quite similar, grayish and furrowed, and also the dark green needles, also another habit just like Monterey pine. And since they are closely enough related, they have both been artificially hybridized and also naturally hybridized, where they co-occur, probably most likely in the coast ranges. Coast ranges are a good place where you'd see them together in central California. So this is a pretty little grove here. So what happens is, the people who artificially hybridize these trees, they use the very fast growth rate of the Monterey pine parent. Pinus radiata, radiata is very fast growing, that's the Monterey pine. And then Pinus attenuata tends to, I believe, have more drought tolerance. They can tolerate some quite crappy soils. Forgive my language, but I gotta be honest with you, the soils are quite lame in some of the spots they grow. And they can still do pretty well. So, I believe they use those, the artificial hybrids, I believe for pine plantations in New Zealand and Australia, because Monterey pine itself is a very common plantation tree in the southern hemisphere, South America, Australia, and stuff like that, for their extreme fast growth and good wood product. So probably using knobcone pine might add a drought resistance to that. So they've also been growing the hybrids. Pinus, they call it Pinus attenuata. Pinus X attenuata. ATTNURADIT RID. I can't even spell today. Radiata, RADIATA. Can't spell today. My tongue is twisted. But you see, this canyon. This is part of City Creek Canyon, and again, this is going up towards Harrison Mountain, which is a really prominent peak above the 330 in the lower foothills of the San Bernardinos. So you can see they love this area. You'll find them a lot mixed in with chaparral, and they form their own woodlands. They're usually very clustered stands in these woodlands. So you can see here, you get some widely spaced trees here, and then sometimes they crowd each other in other spots. So it ranges from a very open woodland to a clustered woodland. Common associates of knobcone pine. Looks like we got a lot of big berry manzanita here. You probably saw a couple of the manzanitas. They're really tall, tree-sized almost. So you'll see a lot of big berry manzanita around here. Chamise. And of course we got Eriodictyon trichocalix, subspecies trichocalix, the yerba santa. We got a lot of that here. And then they can be found mixed with Jeffrey pines, which are also adapted to serpentine soils as well. You probably could find them, I would assume, with gray pines, Pinus attenuata, as well. But again, they're very scattered here in Southern California. Very scattered. Definitely two places, but they do naturalize where they are planted because fire comes through, and what happens is after the fire comes through, the seeds germinate and then they spread. So wherever you have mature trees planted or have been planted in the past, fire comes through, you're probably going to have a gang of saplings everywhere, because this tree grows like crazy once the area is disturbed. So again, beautiful knobcone pine. A lot of times branched near the base. Quite an upright stature. Lots of cones whirled around the branches. Very typical of knobcone pine. Again, it's closely related to the Bishop and Monterey pines. Definitely hybridizes with the Monterey pine. And it's very scattered here in Southern California, but mostly scattered through its range, but more common further up north. So this is it. The interesting knobcone pine, Pinus attenuata. This was Spotlight on Trees. I hope you found this informative and an interesting look at some of our native California flora. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode of Spotlight on Trees.